You are what I'm looking for. I know what I'm looking for.
In today's video, we have another installment of Chop It Up. I have this beautiful Recollections paper pad. This is something that I got for Christmas from my husband from Michael's. He bought me a whole bunch of 12 by 12 paper pads, and I need more paper pads, like I need a hole in my head, but I can't help it. I love them so much, and he knows me oh so well. So after taking a quick flip through of all these beautiful patterns, I chose two. For this project, you're going to need two 12 by 12 pieces of paper, and I've got one for the front and one for the back. I'm going to pull in my trimmer, and I'm going to cut the first piece down to 9.5 inches by 12 inches. I'm paying attention to the orientation of my pattern. This particular picture is landscape, and I want to make sure that I keep that intact. And then I'm going to take my second piece and cut it down to 10 by 12. So the larger piece is going to be the back, and the smaller piece here is going to be the front. And you can keep these little scraps to adhere down to the white core parts that you're going to see, or if you have double-sided paper, you can use that too. It's actually better for this particular project. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard, and I want to keep in mind that my pattern is facing towards the right. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to score at 1/2 inch. I'm going to grab my bone folder and crease the fold here and make sure I get a nice sharp crease. And then I'm going to cover this little 1/2 inch strip with adhesive. Can you guess what we're making yet? We're creating an extra large file folder. So I've got my other piece here, and I'm going to glue the smaller piece to the front of the larger piece. And I'm just gluing it down using that little 1/2 inch, and I'm just pressing in that adhesive, and I'll clean up any mess that I've made with my adhesive oozing out everywhere. I want to make sure that my file folder is nice and straight, so I like to use liquid glue because it gives me that little bit of wiggle room. So I'm just cleaning up my little mess here, and there we go. The file folder is together now. Now we just have to edit it a little bit to make it look more like a folder. So first I'm going to take one of those little scraps. I'm going to take the darker blue because I feel like it's got more of a contrast to the pattern that's on the front. So I'm going to cover this strip with adhesive and glue it down to the top piece. I just want to make sure that I get this straight across the top and covering all of that white paper so that you won't see it when the folder is closed. So I'll get that lined up to right to the top of my paper and press in the adhesive. And then I'll just use a paper towel to clean up any mess. And there we go. Now you can see we have that beautiful background on both pieces. I'll grab my corner rounder and I'll start rounding all of the corners. But I'm going to skip the top left where I intend on creating my little file folder tab. So I'll round all of the other corners. And now I'm going to grab an envelope punch board. I have this We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board. And I'm going to use this to create little file folder tabs. I'll start by taking my top left corner and lining it up right on the center where it says Bow Guide. I'm just going to line that right up with that line and press it up to the top and punch, and it's going to create a little tab. I want my tab to be about 4 inches long, so I'm going to line up the left corner to the 4-inch mark on my punch board, and then I'll punch. And now you can see we have this little tab forming. Now for the next part, I'm going to grab a ruler and a pencil, and I'm just going to create a line from where that little divot is all the way across to the other end, and I'm going to cut this piece away. If you have a trimmer with a little drop down blade, you could just trim this right away and not have any issues, but I know not everybody has that, and maybe not everybody has an envelope punch board, so I'll show you another method later on as well. So I'm just gone ahead and cut that away, and I'll corner round that piece, and there we go. My file folder is complete. I really love the way this turned out. Super pretty. All right, let's move along to another idea. Okay, for my second project, I'm going to create file folders again, but I'm going to create a smaller version. I think this is a super cute idea for little card shares or for ephemera storage or things like that. and also just to get to chopping up. It's super fun. All right, so I've got a piece of cardstock from that same pattern paper pack, and I'm cutting this piece down into 6 inches. So I'll have 2 pieces that measure 6 by 12, and then I'm going to cut them down again to 8 3/4. I'm going to save that small little scrap, and then I'm going to cut that in half. So it's just a little bit bigger than 1.5 inches, just a slightly bigger. So I'll do that to both pieces and then set this aside and pull in my scoreboard. And across the 8 3/4 inch side, I'm going to score at 4 3/4. Use my bone folder to get nice sharp creases. And there we go. We have a mini file folder. And I'll do that to both pieces, scoring again at 4 3/4, folding across that score line and creasing my fold. So for this one, I'm going to make a little pencil mark. I've just got a ruler here, and I'm going to make a mark at 2.5 inches. So this time, my little file folder tab will be on the right-hand side of my folder. And so I've made a little pencil mark, and I'm going to draw a line. Okay, so that's how big my tab is going to be. And now I'm going to take my pencil and draw another line about 1/4 inch up from that pattern paper. So you'll see about 1/4 inch of white strip there. And I'm going to draw a line from that little pencil mark all the way down to the end. And I'll take my scissors and trim across the pencil marks that I've made. So I'm going all the way across to that vertical pencil line that I made. And then I'm going to cut that piece away. So you can kind of see what we're doing here. We're creating the similar idea with that little tab. And now that edge is kind of squared. I tried to use my corner rounder here, and I didn't really like the result. I think you're probably best just to trim it with a pair of scissors and you'll get a better result. It worked. It did kind of crunch my paper a little bit, but I mean, it's okay. It turned out just fine. I'm just going to erase any of those extra pencil lines that we have. I wasn't going to cover that little white part, but then I decided, hey, why not? I've got those little strips that I had cut. So first I'll go ahead and round all of my corners, and I'm going to take one of those strips that I cut in half, and I'm going to use that to cover that little white background, same as we had done with a larger file folder. And I'll adhere that all down, and then I'm just going to take some scissors and trim away the excess. I'll use the file folder as a guide, and it will show me where those white areas are that I need to cut away so that everything will be even and match up nicely. So I'll just take my time to cut around that excess cardstock hanging off. And there we go. Our file folder is complete. So once that's all adhered, I'm just going to grab some distress ink, and I'm just going to ink up the edges. I noticed that the white core is kind of exposed here and in some areas. So I feel like this distressing the edges just kind of clears up that white stuff that's showing around the edge and just kind of makes it look a little bit more complete. All right, there we go. Now we're going to create another tab with the mini folder. Now, in my drawer, I forgot I had this. I found this little tiny baby punch board at Winners one day. Super odd find, but I found this little mini punch board and I just thought it was the coolest. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line up my little left-hand side and punch, and then I'm going to make my tab 2.5 inches, and I'll line that up to 2.5 inches and punch. And then I'm going to create my pencil mark, draw a line, and cut away that little strip, same as we had done in the other 2 folders that we've made. And there we go. Now we have the perfect, cutest little file folder edge. And I'm just going to go ahead and round all of the corners. And I'm going to do the same thing once again by covering up that white paper there. And I'll use one of those little strips that I had cut away, and I'll just line it up and trim around, and voila, there we go. Second file folder is complete. Now, I didn't end up creating any pockets inside of my folder, but that was the initial intention for those little strips. One to cover that top little tab, and one to create a pocket for the inside of your folder. Here's an example of a project that I made using some Tim Holtz cardstock, and this cardstock is double-sided, and I used those extra little strips to create 2 pockets to stuff with some die cuts or bookmarks or tags or whatever you want to put inside of them. So I like creating junk journals, and that's what I would use these for, to add into my junk journal pockets and things like that. So they're really fun to create, and it gets me crafty in my space, and that's what I love most about it. I had also created a large folder using some of that Tim Holtz double-sided cardstock. I say cardstock, it's pattern paper. I don't know, when I'm recording, the words just come out. I don't really choose them. And then sometimes I don't know what I've said until I've gone back and watched my video or edited and listened to the recordings. So there you have it, folks. We've got some beautiful Chop It Up inspired projects. All you need is some pattern paper and some basic tools, and you can make a bunch of file folders to use for card swaps or flat mail or storing die cuts and ephemera, or even store your dies in. Thank you so much for taking time and of your day to spend it here with me. I appreciate the support as always. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. Coming up on screen is a playlist for a ton, and I mean a ton, of Chop It Up inspired projects. I hope that you'll check those out. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!